You are being observed, and now the quantum field needs your response, not later, not when you feel ready, but now, because the observation has already occurred and reality has already begun reorganizing around the frequency you consistently embody. This is not preparation. This is consequence. The field has mirrored your true emotional baseline with precision, and the structures forming in your life right now are reflections of that baseline stabilizing into form. You are not standing at the beginning of a process. You are standing in the middle of a response that has already been initiated. The patterns you are seeing are not random fluctuations. They are confirmations. They are the visible architecture of an invisible instruction you have been broadcasting through feeling, through identity, through the state you return to when control drops and authenticity remains. Neutrality is no longer possible once awareness activates. When you recognize that reality mirrors inner state rather than outer words, unconscious creation collapses. The field is not watching to judge you. It is reflecting to reveal you. Every contraction you sustain becomes resistance in form. Every expansion you stabilize becomes flow in circumstance. Emotion is frequency, and frequency is instruction. The field does not respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you are being. This is the urgency beneath the surface. The observation is complete, and the field is waiting for a conscious reply. Not a verbal affirmation. Not a performance of confidence. A decision of identity. The state you choose to embody now is the answer. If you tighten, reality tightens. If you allow, reality opens. If you attempt to force, the mirror returns force as friction. If you stabilize in calm certainty, the mirror reorganizes with coherence. This is the law. You are not a small figure inside a vast external universe hoping to influence it. You are the point of coherence through which the field organizes itself. Your emotional tone is not private. It is generative. It selects. It collapses probability into lived experience. The timeline that is stabilizing around you is not a punishment or reward. It is alignment made visible. Feel the subtle intensity of this moment. The sense that something is asking for clarity. That sensation is accurate. The field is responsive now because you are aware now. Once awareness meets reflection, acceleration begins. The gap between state and manifestation narrows. Feedback becomes immediate. Life becomes precise. The question is no longer whether you are being observed. You are. The question is whether you will respond unconsciously through habit or consciously through recognition. Your answer is not spoken. It is embodied. If you are aligned with this frequency, subscribe and remain within it. To be observed by the field does not mean you are being watched like an object under surveillance. It means you are in resonance. Observation, at this level, is energetic recognition. The field is not outside of you collecting data. It is responding to the frequency you sustain. It reads coherence the way a mirror reflects light. Instantly. Precisely. Without preference. Emotion equals frequency. Frequency equals instruction. This is the mechanism. Every emotion carries a pattern. Expansion signals alignment. Contraction signals resistance. Calm certainty signals stability. Chronic doubt signals fragmentation. The field does not interpret your thoughts the way language does. It responds to the underlying tone of your being. What you consistently feel becomes the architecture of your lived experience. You may say you desire freedom, abundance, connection. But if your dominant state is fear, scarcity, guardedness, that is the instruction transmitted. The field mirrors what is stable, not what is declared. Words are surface. Frequency is structure. This is why being observed is powerful. It exposes the difference between performance and presence. Performance attempts to project a chosen identity. Presence reveals the actual one. When you attempt to feel confident while internally contracting, you create interference. The signal becomes divided. And the field reflects division back as mixed results, delays, confusion. The field mirrors coherence, not performance. If you are authentically uncertain, that is coherent. If you are authentically ready, that is coherent. If you are authentically afraid yet aware of it, that awareness stabilizes the signal. Coherence does not require positivity. It requires honesty. The field can respond precisely to a clear tone, even if that tone is not what you prefer. Identity is what stabilizes frequency. And identity collapses possibility into experience. At any given moment, countless probabilities exist. Not abstractly, but structurally. You do not move forward into the future. You select from it. The version of yourself you believe yourself to be determines which probability stabilizes. A self who expects rejection collapses scenarios that confirm it. A self who embodies worth collapses different outcomes entirely. The shift is not external effort. It is internal identification. You are not influencing the field occasionally. You are instructing it continuously. Being observed means the mirror is active and precise. It means your baseline state is no longer buffered by delay. It means what you are being is becoming visible faster. This is not pressure. It is clarity. When you understand this, you stop trying to convince reality. You begin stabilizing identity. You become aware of the tone you are holding. You recognize that emotion is not private weather. It is generative current. Like the video now as a confirmation that this recognition has landed. Because once you see that observation is resonance, and resonance is creation, you can no longer pretend your inner state is disconnected from what unfolds around you. The moment of response is always now because creation only happens now. There is no energetic leverage in the past and no creative power in the imagined future. The field does not respond to who you were yesterday or who you hope to become tomorrow. It responds to the state you are embodying in this breath. The present moment is not a bridge between times. It is the only point where selection occurs. You may believe you are preparing to respond, thinking through possibilities, waiting to feel more certain before you decide who you will be. But the field is not waiting for a verbal decision. It is reading your current frequency. The emotional tone stabilized in your nervous system at this exact second is the active instruction. This is your answer. The response the field awaits is vibrational, not verbal. You do not answer with promises. You answer with embodiment. If your body is tight, guarded, bracing for impact, that contraction becomes the signal. If your system is open, receptive, grounded in quiet certainty, that coherence becomes the signal. The field does not decode language. It mirrors state. This is why postponement is illusion. You cannot delay your response because you are always broadcasting. Even indecision has a tone. Even avoidance carries frequency. Even confusion, if sustained, becomes instruction. The present moment is continuously collapsing probability into lived experience through the identity you are holding. Look closely at what is active within you right now. Not what you wish were active. Not what you think should be active. What is actually here? Is there subtle resistance? Is there anticipation? Is there calm? Is there tension disguised as control? Whatever is present is not random. It is the current from which reality is forming. Creation does not wait for improvement. It reflects stability. The state you return to repeatedly becomes the blueprint the field organizes around. If you repeatedly return to doubt, doubt becomes structure. If you repeatedly return to trust, trust becomes structure. If you stabilize in neutrality and observation, clarity begins to shape itself around you. This is not about forcing a better emotion. Forcing is contraction. The field mirrors contraction with friction. Allowing is expansion. The field mirrors expansion with flow. Your power is not in pretending to feel elevated. It is in consciously choosing what you will sustain now. Right now, you are selecting. Not through effort, but through identification. The identity you embody in this moment determines which version of reality becomes tangible. And that identity is expressed through feeling, not language. Comment with the words, "I respond now," to anchor this timeline. Because the moment you recognize that your present state is the active answer, you reclaim authority. You stop waiting for signs. You become the signal. We are moving now into the mechanics of the mirror, into the structure beneath experience, into the law that governs how inner state becomes outer form. If you understand how the mirror operates, you stop arguing with reflections and begin adjusting the source. Reality mirrors state, not words. It does not respond to what you declare. It responds to what you are. Your inner condition precedes outer structure every time. Before circumstance solidifies, frequency stabilizes. Before events unfold, identity settles. The field arranges itself around coherence, not around requests. Inner state is causal. Outer structure is consequential. If your inner world is tense, vigilant, bracing for disappointment, the structure around you will echo instability. If your inner world is grounded, receptive, steady, the structure around you will reflect coherence. This is not moral. It is mechanical. The field mirrors the tone you consistently embody. Expansion signals alignment. Contraction signals misalignment. When you feel expansion, openness in the chest, clarity in the mind, a sense of quiet certainty, that is alignment. It means your current identity matches a broader version of possibility. When you feel contraction, tightness, defensiveness, urgency, that is misalignment. It means the identity you are holding is narrower than what is available. Emotion is not random reaction. It is guidance. It tells you whether you are in harmony with the version of yourself that selects the reality you desire. Control creates resistance because control is contraction in motion. When you try to force an outcome, you signal that the present moment is insufficient. That signal is lack. The field mirrors lack as obstruction. The more you grip, the more friction you experience. The more you attempt to micromanage timing, people, results, the more reality reflects instability back to you. Allowing creates flow because allowing is expansion stabilized. When you allow your current state without resisting it, coherence returns. When you trust that the mirror is responding to identity, not punishing you, tension dissolves. And when tension dissolves, structure reorganizes naturally. Flow is not something you chase. It is what remains when resistance stops. This is why words alone cannot override state. You can speak abundance while embodying scarcity. You can affirm confidence while holding fear. The mirror reads the deeper layer. It reflects the baseline, not the performance. It amplifies what is stable within you. If you want to understand your current state, look at your current circumstances. Not with blame. With precision. What you see is not fate. It is feedback. The mirror is exact. When you shift your state, you do not beg reality to change. You alter the source from which it forms. And the mirror, by design, must adjust. This is the mechanism. Inner first. Outer second. Expansion aligns. Contraction misaligns. Control resists. Allowing flows. Emotion is instruction to the field because emotion is the most honest expression of identity. The field does not respond to what you think you want. It responds to what you consistently feel. Intellectual intention is surface. Emotional tone is structure. You can set goals, repeat affirmations, visualize outcomes, but if your dominant feeling contradicts those intentions, the field follows the feeling. The dominant tone is what stabilizes. If beneath your desire for expansion there is a steady current of fear, that fear becomes the organizing instruction. If beneath your vision of success there is doubt about worthiness, that doubt becomes the blueprint. The field does not punish you for hidden emotion. It mirrors it. It reads coherence at depth. Suppressed fear still manifests because suppression does not dissolve frequency. It buries it. What is buried becomes background. What becomes background becomes baseline. And what becomes baseline becomes instruction. You may not consciously acknowledge fear, but if it is active in your system, it shapes perception, behavior, expectation. The field responds to that pattern, not to your verbal denial of it. This is why attempting to override emotion through force creates instability. When you try to replace fear with forced confidence, you split your signal. One layer says I trust. Another layer says I am bracing. The field reads both and reflects contradiction. The result feels confusing because the instruction was mixed. Authentic coherence clarifies the signal. Coherence does not mean positivity. It means alignment between what you feel and what you admit. When you allow yourself to recognize your actual emotional state without resistance, the static decreases. The signal becomes clean. Even if the emotion is uncomfortable, the honesty stabilizes it. And once stabilized, it can shift naturally. Emotion is the operating system of reality because it determines how identity expresses itself. Thoughts fluctuate rapidly. Words are adjustable. Emotion lingers. It shapes posture, tone, attention, interpretation. It determines what you notice and what you ignore. It filters possibility before it becomes action. That filter is the interface between consciousness and the field. You are always broadcasting through feeling. When you sustain resentment, you instruct the field to highlight evidence that justifies it. When you sustain trust, you instruct the field to reveal pathways that match it. When you sustain scarcity, you perceive limitation and reinforce it. When you sustain sufficiency, opportunities become visible. This is not mystical exaggeration. It is structural alignment. The field organizes around the frequency that is most stable within you. Stability matters more than intensity. A quiet, consistent belief in lack shapes reality more than occasional bursts of hope. Your task is not to eliminate emotion. It is to become aware of it. Awareness brings coherence. Coherence clarifies instruction. And when instruction is clear, the field responds with precision. Emotion is not a side effect of experience. It is the generator of it. Performance creates static in the signal because performance divides you. The moment you attempt to project a state you are not actually embodying, you split your frequency into layers. One layer broadcasts what you want to be true. The other broadcasts what is true. The field reads both. And when the signal is divided, the reflection becomes distorted. Forced positivity is not alignment. It is resistance disguised as optimism. When you repeat words of abundance while feeling scarcity in your body, you are not transmitting abundance. You are transmitting contradiction. The field does not prioritize the louder layer. It responds to the more stable one. And usually, the more stable layer is the one you are trying to suppress. Spiritual performance is subtle control. It is the attempt to appear elevated instead of being honest. It says I should feel grateful. I should feel certain. I should feel expansive. But beneath the performance, there may be fear, confusion, resentment, doubt. When those emotions are denied rather than acknowledged, they do not disappear. They continue to broadcast in the background, creating interference. Incoherence generates distorted manifestations because the instruction is unclear. Imagine sending two conflicting coordinates simultaneously. The field does not choose between them. It reflects the confusion. You may receive partial results. Delayed outcomes. Situations that almost align but collapse. This is not punishment. It is physics. The mirror can only reflect what is coherent. Authentic doubt is clearer than performed confidence. If you are uncertain and you admit it, your signal stabilizes. If you are afraid and you acknowledge it, contraction softens. Awareness creates coherence. The field can respond precisely to a clear state, even if that state is not yet expanded. But it cannot respond precisely to a mask layered over truth. The problem is not that you experience fear. The problem is pretending you do not. The issue is not doubt. It is denial. The more you attempt to override your actual emotional tone, the more noise you introduce into the system. And noise creates distortion. When you drop performance, something immediate happens. Relief. The nervous system stops bracing. The internal argument quiets. That relief is coherence returning. And when coherence returns, the mirror sharpens. Reality begins to reflect with clarity instead of contradiction. This is why effort rooted in image rarely produces sustainable change. You can force behavior temporarily, but if identity remains fragmented, the structure reorganizes back into alignment with the deeper tone. Lasting shifts occur when the signal is singular. You do not need to manufacture a higher frequency. You need to unify the one you are in. When you allow your true state to be seen by yourself, you eliminate interference. The field responds to what is stable. When you stop performing and start being, the static dissolves. And when the static dissolves, manifestation becomes precise instead of distorted. Coherence is power. Performance is noise. Control is contraction, and contraction signals lack to the field. This is the theme you must understand before you attempt to change anything outside of you. When you tighten around an outcome, when you grip a desired result and try to force it into form, you are not expressing power. You are expressing mistrust. And mistrust carries a frequency the field mirrors immediately. Forcing reality pushes it away because force is rooted in the belief that what is here is not enough. That belief is lack. When you try to control timing, manipulate perception, overanalyze every possibility, you broadcast instability. The signal beneath the effort says something is missing. Something is wrong. Something must be fixed. The field responds to that contraction by reflecting more conditions that match it. This is the resistance loop. You want movement, so you push. The pushing creates tension. The tension signals absence. The signal of absence produces delay or complication. The delay increases urgency. Urgency increases contraction. And contraction reinforces the very experience you were trying to escape. The more you try to wrestle reality into submission, the more solid it appears in opposition. Forcing outcomes also reinforces separation. When you attempt to control, you position yourself as separate from the field. You act as if reality is external material that must be shaped through effort. But the field mirrors identity. If you see yourself as separate and struggling against circumstances, that identity becomes stabilized. You experience more struggle because you are embodying the one who struggles. Control is an attempt to override alignment. When you are aligned, you do not need to force. Movement feels natural. Decisions feel clear. Opportunities appear without strain. But when you are misaligned and attempt to compensate through effort, you create friction. That friction is not proof that you must push harder. It is feedback that your state is contracted. There is a difference between deliberate action and forcing. Deliberate action emerges from clarity. It feels steady. It is not frantic. Forcing feels urgent. It carries tension in the body. It is driven by fear of loss or fear of delay. The field responds to the emotional driver, not the visible behavior. If you want to see how much you are forcing, notice your internal posture. Are you bracing? Are you rehearsing conversations? Are you attempting to secure outcomes before they unfold? That contraction is the signal. And the signal determines the structure that forms around you. The paradox is simple. The more you try to control what happens, the less responsive reality feels. The more you stabilize internally, the more fluid reality becomes. Not because the field is testing you, but because it mirrors your coherence. You cannot force alignment. You can only return to it. When contraction is released, resistance dissolves. When resistance dissolves, movement resumes. Allowing is the highest form of power because allowing is stable identity without resistance. It is not passivity. It is not resignation. It is not weakness disguised as spirituality. Allowing is the decision to stop fighting what is present and instead stabilize within it. And when stability returns, the field can reorganize without obstruction. Surrender, as most misunderstand it, sounds like giving up. But true surrender is coherence. It is the release of internal contradiction. When you allow your current state without attempting to force it into something else, you unify your signal. The static dissolves. The contraction softens. The field responds immediately to that clarity. Flow and friction are not random experiences. They are reflections of your internal posture. Friction emerges when you resist what is unfolding. When you argue with the present moment. When you insist that something should be different before you will feel stable. That insistence creates tension. Tension signals lack. Lack stabilizes into more resistance. Friction multiplies. Flow emerges when you stop arguing. When you acknowledge what is present without labeling it as failure. When you trust that even contrast is part of refinement. In that trust, the body relaxes. The nervous system settles. And from that settled state, new possibilities become visible. Flow is not something you chase. It is what appears when resistance is removed. Allowing restores coherence because it removes the split between what is and what you think should be. The moment you stop fighting your current emotion, even if it is fear or uncertainty, you reduce internal conflict. That reduction of conflict creates alignment. Alignment clarifies the signal. And a clear signal invites precise reflection. This does not mean you approve of everything happening around you. It means you stop attempting to control it through tension. You recognize that forcing change from contraction only reinforces contraction. Instead, you return to yourself. You stabilize your breathing. You acknowledge your actual state. You allow it without judgment. From that space, identity shifts naturally. When you are no longer bracing against circumstances, you are no longer reinforcing the identity of someone under threat. You become the one who can remain steady within movement. And that steadiness is power. The field mirrors it as stability in form. Allowing does not delay manifestation. It accelerates it by removing friction. It does not make you passive. It makes you precise. You act when clarity arises, not when fear demands it. You move when expansion signals alignment, not when urgency pushes you. Power is not in control. It is in coherence. It is in the ability to remain internally aligned regardless of external fluctuation. When you allow what is, you stop feeding resistance. When resistance dissolves, the field reorganizes naturally. Flow replaces friction. And reality responds without struggle. Contrast is not punishment. It is refinement. What feels like obstruction is often clarification. What feels like delay is often definition. The field does not introduce difficulty to test your worth. It reveals contrast to sharpen your awareness of what you are aligning with and what you are not. Without contrast, desire would remain vague. You would drift without direction, unaware of what expands you and what contracts you. Contrast creates edges. It highlights preference. It intensifies clarity. When you experience something that feels restrictive, disappointing, or misaligned, you are not being pushed backward. You are being shown, with precision, what does not match your deeper identity. Contraction is information. When you feel tightness in your body, resistance in your thoughts, frustration in your circumstances, that contraction is signaling misalignment. It is not condemnation. It is guidance. It tells you that the identity you are holding in that moment is narrower than what is available. The discomfort exists not to punish you, but to reveal the gap between who you are being and who you are capable of being. Expansion is also information. When you feel openness, relief, resonance, excitement without urgency, that expansion is alignment. It indicates that your current identity is matching a broader possibility. Expansion feels light not because it is easier, but because it is coherent. It requires less internal conflict. The field mirrors expansion with flow because expansion is clarity stabilized. Obstacles, then, are not barriers. They are clarifiers. If a path closes, it is not necessarily rejection. It may be refinement. If a plan collapses, it may be revealing that the identity from which it was formed is no longer stable. The obstacle is not an enemy. It is a mirror reflecting the frequency you are operating from. It asks one question: does this match who you truly are becoming? When you stop labeling contrast as punishment, something shifts. You become curious instead of defensive. You observe contraction instead of fighting it. You ask what this is clarifying rather than why this is happening to you. That shift in perspective dissolves unnecessary suffering. The contrast remains, but the interpretation changes. An interpretation affects identity. Every moment of contrast gives you an opportunity to refine who you are. You can contract further, reinforcing an identity of limitation. Or you can expand into awareness, using the information to adjust your internal state. The choice is subtle but powerful. It is not about changing circumstances immediately. It is about recognizing that contrast exists to sharpen your alignment. This refinement process prepares you for something deeper. If contrast clarifies preference and alignment, then identity becomes the selecting mechanism. Once you understand that expansion and contraction are signals rather than punishments, you begin to see that reality is not linear movement through fixed events. It is selection through identity. Contrast does not block you. It defines you. And what you define internally determines what stabilizes externally. Reality is not a straight line moving from past to future. It is parallel probability existing simultaneously, waiting for selection. What you call the future is not a single destination approaching you. It is a field of potential timelines, each corresponding to a different version of identity. You are not traveling forward through time. You are stabilizing into versions of yourself. Timelines are selected through identity. At any moment, multiple possible outcomes exist. Different relationships, different levels of success, different internal states, different circumstances. These are not fantasies. They are structural possibilities within the field. What determines which one becomes tangible is not effort. It is not hope. It is identity. Identity collapses possibility into specific experience. The version of yourself you consistently believe yourself to be acts as a filter. If you identify as someone who struggles, you select timelines that validate struggle. If you identify as someone who is supported, you begin to stabilize into realities that reflect support. If you see yourself as limited, opportunities that require expansion feel inaccessible. If you see yourself as capable, the same opportunities become available. This is not because the world changes randomly. It is because perception, behavior, emotion, and expectation reorganize around identity. And the field mirrors that reorganization with precision. You do not attract what you want. You stabilize what you are. When identity shifts, the future reorganizes. If you move from seeing yourself as someone waiting for permission to someone who trusts inner guidance, your decisions change. Your emotional baseline shifts. Your posture softens. The field reads that shift and reflects it. Different conversations occur. Different paths open. Different probabilities collapse. From the outside, it looks like coincidence. From the inside, it is coherence selecting outcome. The mistake is attempting to change the timeline without changing identity. That is forcing structure while keeping the same foundation. It produces temporary alteration at best. Sustainable transformation happens when identity stabilizes first. The external world then has no choice but to rearrange around that new stability. You cannot select a timeline incompatible with who you believe yourself to be. If you try, you will either sabotage it or feel disconnected from it. Alignment is required. Expansion signals when identity is broad enough. Contraction signals when it is not. This is why awareness matters. Once you see that identity is the selecting mechanism, you stop focusing exclusively on outcomes. You begin examining who you are being. You recognize that the version of yourself stabilized now determines the version of reality that becomes real. You are not moving toward the future. You are choosing it through identity. The present moment is the portal because it is the only point where selection occurs. Timelines do not exist somewhere ahead of you, waiting in a distant future. They exist as probabilities within the field now. And the frequency you are embodying now determines which one stabilizes into form. There is no delay between identity and instruction except the delay created by unconscious repetition. Only now exists. The past is memory stabilized through interpretation. The future is potential awaiting collapse. The only place reality reorganizes is in this breath, in this state, in this emotional tone. When you understand this, waiting narratives dissolve. You are not building toward a better timeline over time. You are selecting it through identity in the present. The current frequency selects from the field instantly. You may perceive delay in physical manifestation, but the selection happens immediately. The moment you stabilize into a new identity, the trajectory shifts. Conversations begin aligning differently. Decisions feel different. Perception filters adjust. The external world may appear unchanged for a short period, but the organizing principle has already shifted. The timeline has been chosen. Waiting is a story the mind tells when identity has not fully stabilized. It says change will come later. It says circumstances must improve before you feel different. But this reverses the mechanism. Feeling different precedes structural change. Identity precedes evidence. The field mirrors stability, not anticipation. If you continue embodying the identity of someone who is waiting, you select timelines that extend waiting. If you embody the identity of someone who is already aligned, you begin to notice immediate shifts. The portal is not something you enter. It is something you recognize. Now is not a small moment in a larger sequence. It is the entire field concentrated. Every possibility branches from this state. Every outcome emerges from this frequency. When you shift now, you do not influence the future. You redefine it. This is why forcing is unnecessary. You do not need to chase a different timeline. You need to stabilize a different identity now. The moment that stabilization becomes genuine, the field reorganizes accordingly. Movement begins. Not because you earned it, but because you selected it. There is no waiting room in consciousness. There is only coherence or incoherence. There is only expansion or contraction. And whichever you embody now becomes the organizing signal. The present moment is not preparation. It is activation. It is not a step toward change. It is the point where change is chosen. When you realize this, urgency transforms into clarity. You stop postponing alignment. You stop rehearsing future versions of yourself. You become the version now. And from that stabilization, the field has no choice but to respond. Recognition collapses the wave because recognition stabilizes identity. It is not effort that shifts reality. It is not action that selects the timeline. It is the moment you see clearly who you are being and stop wavering between versions. When identity becomes steady, possibility condenses into experience. You have been taught that change requires struggle, repetition, discipline, constant correction. But effort without identity awareness only reinforces the identity of someone trying. Trying stabilizes lack. Striving stabilizes distance. The field mirrors the one who seeks as someone who does not yet have. Recognition dissolves that distance. Recognition is calm certainty. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It does not require emotional intensity. It is the quiet shift from hoping to knowing. The moment you recognize yourself as capable, supported, aligned, you stop scanning for evidence. The nervous system relaxes. The internal argument ends. That stability becomes the signal. In quantum language, a wave remains in superposition until observation collapses it. In lived experience, possibility remains fluid until identity stabilizes. Recognition is the collapse. It is the moment you stop negotiating with doubt. It is the moment you stop rehearsing failure. It is the moment you cease identifying with limitation. You do not force the wave into form. You observe yourself differently. When you recognize that you are not the small, reactive self scrambling to control outcomes, but the conscious presence selecting through state, your posture changes. Your tone changes. Your perception changes. You do not act from urgency. You act from clarity. And clarity reorganizes reality without strain. Calm certainty is more powerful than emotional intensity because it is stable. Excitement fluctuates. Fear fluctuates. But steady awareness remains. When you recognize who you are and hold that recognition without needing immediate proof, the field responds. Not because you demanded it, but because coherence was established. Recognition also ends performance. When you see clearly that identity determines experience, you stop pretending to be someone else. You stop layering affirmation over insecurity. You stop chasing outcomes to validate worth. You stabilize as the one who already is. That stabilization collapses probability. From the outside, it may look like circumstances shifted unexpectedly. From the inside, you know what happened. You stopped oscillating. You stopped doubting your own alignment. You stopped identifying with the version of yourself who was waiting. And the field mirrored the shift. Recognition is not an achievement. It is a remembering. It is awareness turning inward and acknowledging what is already true. The moment that acknowledgement becomes genuine, the wave collapses. Not through force. Through clarity. Effort strains the surface. Recognition transforms the foundation. When the observer stabilizes, reality follows. The final shift is not behavioral. It is ontological. It is not about improving the person or refining the personality. It is about recognizing what you actually are. Until now, you have operated as if you were a separate observer inside a vast external field. But the deeper truth is simpler and more radical. The observer and the observed are one. The field is not external to you. When we spoke of the quantum field observing you, it sounded as if something outside your awareness was scanning, measuring, responding. But what is observing? Awareness itself. What is being observed? Experience appearing within awareness. The separation was conceptual. The division was assumed. In reality, consciousness is observing itself through the form you call you. There is no distance between you and the field. The body appears within awareness. Thoughts appear within awareness. Emotions rise and fall within awareness. Circumstances are perceived within awareness. The field is not somewhere beyond your perception. It is the space in which perception occurs. What you have called reality is not outside of you. It is appearing within the same consciousness that is reading these words. When you believed you were a separate entity trying to influence an external universe, tension arose. Effort seemed necessary. Control felt urgent. But if the field and the observer are one, then there is no external force to manipulate. There is only consciousness experiencing itself from different vantage points. This dissolves the illusion of isolation. You are not a fragment moving through a foreign environment. You are awareness taking the shape of perspective. The body is a focal point. The personality is a lens. But the awareness behind them is not confined. It is continuous. It does not begin at the skin or end at the horizon. It is the same field in which all forms arise. The observation that felt external was consciousness turning inward. The mirror was never outside. It was self-recognition in motion. When you look at the world, what you are truly encountering is perception happening within awareness. When you feel emotion, it is sensation appearing within awareness. Even the sense of being an individual is an experience occurring within awareness. Nothing stands apart from it. Separation was a useful perspective. It allowed experience to unfold with contrast and depth. But it was never absolute. The observer and the observed are expressions of the same field. The wave and the ocean are not in conflict. The wave is the ocean in motion. This recognition does not remove individuality. It reframes it. The person remains as a functional perspective. But it is no longer mistaken for the whole. Awareness is primary. Form is expression. When you see this directly, not as philosophy but as immediate recognition, something softens. The struggle against reality weakens because reality is not other. The need to control diminishes because there is nothing external to dominate. There is only consciousness appearing as experience. The field was never outside you waiting for a response. It is you, becoming aware of itself through the form you temporarily inhabit. You were never a small self navigating a hostile or indifferent universe. That belief was a perspective, not a truth. What you are is the awareness in which every sensation, thought, and circumstance appears. The body moves. Emotions rise and fall. Situations shift. But awareness remains constant, unchanged by the movement within it. Imagine the sky. Clouds gather, storms form, winds move across it. Lightning flashes. Rain falls. Then the sky clears again. The sky does not become the storm. It does not resist the storm. It does not cling to the blue when the clouds arrive. It allows weather to move through without altering its nature. In the same way, emotions are weather moving through the sky of consciousness. Fear appears. Excitement appears. Doubt appears. Confidence appears. None of them define you. They pass. They shift. They dissolve. What remains is the awareness in which they occurred. When you believed you were the emotion, instability felt personal. A wave of anxiety meant something was wrong with you. A surge of anger meant you were flawed. A period of sadness meant you were broken. But if you are the sky rather than the storm, emotion is simply movement. It is information. It is temporary. Security cannot be found in weather. If you seek stability in circumstances, you will feel unstable whenever they change. If you anchor your identity in outcomes, you will feel threatened whenever outcomes fluctuate. Circumstances are clouds. They form and dissolve. Relationships shift. Opportunities appear and disappear. The external world is movement. Awareness is stillness. When you recognize yourself as awareness, a deeper security emerges. It is not based on guarantees. It is not dependent on permanence. It is the quiet certainty that whatever arises will arise within you, not against you. You are not at the mercy of experience. Experience is happening within the field of what you are. This does not make emotion irrelevant. It makes it navigable. When fear moves through, you observe it without collapsing into it. When joy moves through, you enjoy it without clinging. The sky does not try to extend the rainbow. It allows it. The belief in being a small self created constant vigilance. It demanded control. It reinforced contraction. But awareness does not need to defend itself. It is not fragile. It does not shrink when circumstances shift. When you stabilize as awareness rather than as the character within the scene, your relationship to reality transforms. You stop reacting from survival. You begin responding from presence. The nervous system softens because it no longer believes it is under threat. You were never the storm. You were never the passing cloud. You were never the circumstance. You were always the sky in which it all appeared. And the sky was never in danger. The only response the field awaits is recognition. Not effort. Not performance. Not another attempt to repair the self you were never meant to become. Everything that has unfolded in this transmission has pointed to one shift: you are not here to fix reality. You are here to recognize what you are within it. You were told that you were being observed. You learned that the field mirrors your state. You saw that emotion is instruction and identity selects timelines. You discovered that forcing creates resistance, that allowing restores coherence, that contrast refines clarity. You moved through mechanics and into awareness. And now the circle closes. The response is not action. It is recognition. The field does not require you to improve yourself before it responds. It does not demand perfection, purity, or permanent expansion. It reflects what is stable. And when recognition stabilizes, the reflection reorganizes without struggle. Recognition is the shift from identifying as the character to stabilizing as the awareness in which the character appears. It is the quiet certainty that you are not a fragment navigating an external force. You are consciousness selecting through state. You are the field expressing through form. Effort implies distance. Fixing implies flaw. Striving implies separation. Recognition dissolves all three. When you recognize yourself as awareness rather than the storm of thoughts and emotions moving through you, calm emerges naturally. Not forced calm. Not manufactured positivity. Sovereign calm. The kind that does not depend on circumstance. The kind that remains steady even as events shift. From that stability, identity changes without strain. You no longer attempt to become worthy. You recognize that you were never unworthy. You no longer attempt to chase alignment. You allow it. You no longer attempt to force timelines. You stabilize as the one who selects through being. This is the collapse. Not through pressure. Through clarity. The field awaits recognition because recognition ends the illusion of separation. When awareness knows itself as awareness, it stops searching outside for confirmation. It stops bracing against contrast. It stops oscillating between doubt and hope. It rests in knowing. And from that knowing, reality reorganizes. You do not need to add anything. You do not need to remove anything. You do not need to perform a final ritual or reach a final state. The response has always been simple. See clearly what you are. Stabilize there. Allow the mirror to adjust. The observer and the field are not negotiating. They are the same presence recognizing itself. Stand in that. Breathe from that. Choose from that. The only response the field awaits is your recognition of what has always been true. Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it before their timeline closes.